Welcome to DriverDTrains. Thanks for stopping by. I'm your host, Driver D. Our conductor and brakeman, Scratchy-C, is busy debugging our code. In my last video, part 1 of this series, I showed you how to assemble a basic DCC-EX command station to control our trains using an Arduino Mega microcontroller. If you haven't already seen that video, be sure to check it out. In this video, part 2 of the series, I'll show you how to download and install the free DCC-EX command station software. Then we'll use the EX-WebThrottle app to test our new command station and try running our trains. In the next video, we'll circle back and add a Wi-Fi shield to the command station. I'll also show you how to install the WiThrottle app on your phone or tablet to run your trains. After that, we'll add a digital LCD display to the command station. In later videos, I will show you how to set up JMRI to program your locomotives and how to use JMRI throttles to control your locomotives. Be sure to check this video's description for links to the various websites I mentioned here. There's lots to do and the fast clock is ticking, so let's cut the chatter and highball it out onto the main line. We've got a schedule to keep. Installing and configuring DCC-EX. Now that we have assembled a basic DCC-EX command station, it's time to install the DCC-EX software, which is known as EX Command Station, but which I'll sometimes just call DCC-EX for simplicity. There are two different ways to install the DCC-EX software. The first way is to use the DCC-EX automated EX installer. Unfortunately, at the time that I first installed DCC-EX, the automated installer was only working reliably on Windows, and I use a Mac, and I was unable to get it to work in the brief time I tried it. In July 2023, DCC-EX announced that they had written a new installer that should work more reliably on other operating systems, such as Mac or Linux. However, I still ran into some issues trying to install it, although I eventually got it to work. But from the looks of it, and from reading the instructions, it doesn't look that much simpler to use than the alternative. Which brings us to the second way of installing the DCC-EX software, which is to use Arduino's native installer, which is known as an Integrated Development Environment, or IDE. The Arduino IDE is actually a major component of the Arduino's success, and I encourage you to try using it, even if you can use the automated EX installer. The Arduino IDE is easy to use and will allow you to customize your DCC-EX installation as time goes by. There are also a lot of other Arduino-based projects for model railroads besides DCC-EX, and if you become comfortable using the IDE now, you will be ready for your next Arduino project. So in this video, I will show you how to install DCC-EX using the Arduino IDE. Here are the steps we'll follow. First, we'll connect the Arduino DCC-EX command station to our computer with a USB cable. Then we'll download the DCC-EX software. After that, we'll download and install the Arduino IDE and test the connection between the command station and the IDE. Finally, we'll upload the DCC-EX software to the Arduino controller. When we're done, we'll use the EX-WebThrottle app from our Google Chrome Internet web browser to test our command station and run some trains. So let's get started. Step 1. Connect the command station to our computer. Before we go on, let's make sure the basic DCC-EX command station we assembled in the last video is connected to our computer. To do this, we will plug the USB cable from the Arduino controller into one of our computer's USB ports. We don't need the track power hooked up just yet, but it's okay if it is. When we plug the Arduino into our computer, we should see some lights come on the controller board. On the Arduino Mega, there is a green power LED on the right-hand side of the board and a yellow light on the left side under the motor shield. If for some reason the yellow light on your controller board is not on, don't worry. The manufacturer could have it configured to be off by default. Later, when we upload software into the Arduino, additional yellow lights under the motor shield will flash on and off when the controller is transmitting or receiving information via the USB port. Step 2. Download DCC-EX, EX command station. Now that we've hooked up our command station to the computer, let's download and install DCC-EX. This is also very easy to do. One thing to note is that the DCC-EX software is not actually on the DCC-EX website. Rather, it is located in a GitHub repository. GitHub, which is now a subsidiary of Microsoft, is a cloud-based service for software development and is used by many open-source developers for distribution and version control. Scratchy-C has a bit of an infatuation with the GitHub mascot. I'll include a link to DCC-EX's GitHub page in this video's description, but for now, we'll navigate there from the DCC-EX website. First, let's go back to the DCC-EX website. There are a number of different places on the DCC-EX website to find links to the GitHub Downloads page. Currently, the most direct method is by using one of the buttons in the EX Command Station Releases box in the upper right-hand corner of the home page. We will be doing a manual installation of the production release, but it actually doesn't matter which button we press because they all go to the EX Command Station web page. Once on the EX Command Station page, we'll scroll until we see the selection called Manually Loading the Software. Then we look for the button that says Official Release Page. Press that and we will be taken to the DCC-EX Production Release Download page on GitHub. Now that we are on the GitHub download page, we'll scroll down and find the link to download the most recent official version of DCC-EX. There are a few different versions of the download file using either tar or zip compression, but for the sake of simplicity, we are going to download the Command Station EX zip file. So we'll click on that link and the DCC-EX software will be downloaded to our computer in the Downloads folder. Step 3. Download the Arduino IDE. Since we'll be using the Arduino IDE to install DCC-EX, the first thing we need to do is download and install the IDE. This is a very simple process. First, we go to the home page of the Arduino website, which is a .cc address, not a .com. I'll include a link in this video's description. You can also get to the Arduino website from the DCC-EX website, but it requires clicking through a few different links. Once on the Arduino homepage, we select Software from the choices at the top and are taken to the Downloads page. Now we select our operating system from the Download Options box on the right, and we will be offered the opportunity to make a donation to help Arduino development if we like. Otherwise, we simply click on Just Download, and the Arduino IDE installer for our operating system will be downloaded to our computer in the Downloads folder. Now we find the installer in our Downloads folder and double-click to open it. On the Mac, this will open a disk image. We drag the icon for the Arduino IDE application onto the icon for the Applications folder. It will copy over, and we're all set. The Arduino IDE is now installed on our computer. On Windows, the installer you will download is a .exe file. Once the download is complete, you will launch the installer. The easiest way to do this is to select the file from the Downloads menu in your web browser. After you launch the installer, it will ask you where you want to install the Arduino IDE. Usually, this will be in your User folder. After the installation is complete, a pop-up will appear asking you to complete the Arduino IDE setup. Make sure that you have connected your Arduino command station to your computer with a USB cable. When you are ready to continue, select Finish. If you also check the box to Run Arduino IDE, it will automatically take you to our next step. We now have all the software we need for our DCC-EX command station. Step 4. Launch the Arduino IDE. Now let's launch the Arduino IDE for the first time and make sure it's connected to the command station. Find the Arduino IDE in your Applications folder, or wherever it may be, and launch the app. The computer may ask if you trust the app and are sure that you want to open it. After confirming that you do want to launch the Arduino IDE, it may take a few moments, but eventually a white canvas with a pulsing Arduino logo should appear in the middle of your screen. Then, after some more time, the main IDE window will appear, with a white pane at the top and a black one underneath. If you are using Windows and launched the IDE from the installer, you will see the same thing. You may also have to grant permission for the IDE to communicate on your networks. The white area is where all our program code will appear. In the world of Arduino programming, the bits of code we upload to the controller board are called sketches. When we first launch the IDE, it will open the basic Arduino sketch, which is just a placeholder for our future code. The black output area at the bottom of the window shows various messages from the IDE. Note that if you try to open the IDE before connecting the Arduino command station, you may not see the black output area. If that happens, don't worry. Just quit the IDE, connect the command station to your computer, and then open the IDE again. After we launch the IDE for the first time, it will begin downloading the various library packages and helper files it needs to function correctly. We'll see these listed in the black output area. Depending on our internet connection speed, this may take a minute or two to complete. Once the initial setup is done, we need to tell the IDE what controller board we want to upload our code to. In the upper left corner of the screen is a drop-down menu where we can select our Arduino controller board by indicating which USB port it is connected to. When we first launch the IDE, the menu will likely say Select Board. After the IDE scans our computer's connections, it may list the board for us. In this example, we are using an Arduino Mega for our command station, so we want to select the Mega that is connected to our USB port. We can also do this from the Tools menu in the menu bar. The exact way the name of the port is displayed on your computer will depend on the operating system you are using. Note that we do not want a Bluetooth connection. Our command station is connected via USB. If you see more than one USB port listed, you may have to resort to trial and error to find the correct one. Also, if you have more than one Arduino hooked up to your computer, you will want to make sure that you select the correct one. Once we select the Arduino Mega from the drop-down menu, we can test our connection from the IDE by uploading the basic Arduino sketch we found when we launched the IDE. First, let's compile the code and check that there are no errors by clicking on the small round button with the check mark in the upper left corner of the window. This will scan the code for errors and compile it so that we can send it to the controller board. Once this has completed, we should see a message at the bottom of the window that the IDE is done compiling. If you haven't selected a board yet from the drop-down menu, you will get an error message that you need to select a board first. Also, if for some reason you modified the code in the IDE window, you may get an error message if the changes would, in fact, cause an error. If you ever run into trouble, you can always start over with a new sketch by choosing New Sketch from the File menu. You just need to make sure you select the Arduino Mega controller board again from the drop-down menu. Once the IDE compiles our sketch and verifies that there are no errors, we can upload the code to the Arduino. To do that, we select the small round button with the right pointing arrow that is in the upper left corner of the window just next to the Compile button. This will recompile our sketch and upload the code to the Arduino. If we look carefully at the controller board, we should see a brief flashing yellow light indicating that the board is receiving the code. Because the basic Arduino sketch we are using for this test is so small, it only takes a fraction of a second to upload, so we may not see the light unless we are looking at it right as we start the upload process. In any case, after a few seconds, the IDE should display a message in the bottom right corner of the screen that it is done uploading. Again, if for some reason you haven't selected a board to upload to, or if your board is no longer connected to your computer, you will receive an error message. You'll need to reconnect the board and try again, and you may even need to close up and relaunch the IDE. We have now uploaded our first sketch to the Arduino. Now let's turn it into a DCC-EX command station. Step 5. Upload DCC-EX to the Arduino command station using the Arduino IDE. We're almost done installing DCC-EX. Now it's time to open the DCC-EX command station sketch in the Arduino IDE and then use the IDE to upload the code to the Arduino Mega controller board at the heart of our DCC-EX command station. First, let's find the zip file we downloaded earlier from the DCC-EX GitHub repository. We'll double-click that to extract all our files from the zip into a new Command Station EX folder. Inside this folder, we can find all the many parts of the DCC-EX command station software. At last count, there were 125 separate files in all. All of these are parts of the EX command station software and will be compiled together to send to the Arduino controller board for our DCC-EX command station. Now we need to load all of these files into the Arduino IDE. In the Command Station EX folder, we'll find the file called commandstationex.ino. INO are the last three letters in Arduino, and the .ino or .eno file is the tree trunk or the core of our sketch that the IDE uses as a starting point to identify all the other parts and branches of our code. Double-click on the commandstationex.ino file and it will open in the Arduino IDE and begin loading all of the other components of the command station software. This may take a minute or two as there is a lot of code. If for some reason double-clicking on the file doesn't work, you can also open it from within the IDE by choosing Open from the File menu and navigating to the Command Station EX folder and then selecting the commandstationex.ino file. Once the DCC-EX command station is loaded into the IDE, we can see all of its parts. The first dozen or so components are listed across the top of the code window, but there are at least 100 more, and they won't all fit on the screen. But we can see a list of them in a drop-down menu by clicking on the three dots on the right-hand side near the top of the window. At this point, we don't need to know and won't get into what all of these do. That's a topic for another video. In the future, we will do some configuration of the code for the Wi-Fi shield and the LCD display, but for now, we don't actually need to do anything except upload the sketch to the Arduino controller. So we'll click the Upload button in the top left corner of the window. Remember, it's the small round button with the right pointing arrow in it, and the IDE will compile and upload our sketch into the Arduino. This time, when we look at the yellow lights on the controller board under the motor shield, we'll see both of the yellow transmit and receive lights flashing rapidly as the IDE and the Arduino engage in conversation. After about half a minute, the yellow lights will stop flashing, and the IDE will let us know that the upload is complete. We have now installed DCC-EX on our command station. It's time to test it and run some trains. Step 6. Test our command station with EX-WebThrottle. It's now time to test what we've done and then run some trains. We will do this using the online EX-WebThrottle app in the Google Chrome web browser. Unfortunately, the EX-WebThrottle app will not run in Safari, Firefox, or Internet Explorer, so you will need to use a Chrome-based browser. According to DCC-EX, Opera and Edge should both work, but you will probably just want to use Google Chrome. If you don't already have Chrome, download it from the Google website. Once we have our Chrome browser open, we go back to the DCC-EX website and click on the EX-WebThrottle link in the menu on the left. Then we'll scroll down to the page where it says, Try it now, run from the cloud, and click on the Try it now button. This will take us to the EX-WebThrottle page and open up the EX-WebThrottle in our browser window. As always, I'll include a direct link to the EX-WebThrottle app in this video's description. Just a brief aside, you'll notice that the EX-WebThrottle app still uses the DCC++EX branding from prior to 2022 that I discussed in my last video. Now, back to our regularly scheduled programming. Now let's check the connection to our DCC-EX command station. Click on the Connect DCC++EX button in the upper right-hand corner of the window, and a pop-up window will appear on the left asking us to select the USB communications port for our command station. We'll want to select the same port that we selected when we used the IDE to install DCC-EX. Once we select the correct USB port, EX-WebThrottle will connect to the command station and start sending and receiving information. Make sure the slider button for the debug console in the bottom left corner of the throttle is turned on. The yellow box below the throttle is the debug console, and in it we'll see all the responses received from the command station scrolling past as it identifies itself. Eventually, near the bottom of the list, we should see a line identifying the version of DCC-EX we installed and the type of controller and motor shield we are using. In this case, a Mega with the standard motor shield. The last thing we will check is the control for power to the track. We need to make sure that the power supply we selected for the track is plugged into the motor shield. You may recall from my last video that this was the shortest pair of wires with the female barrel connector that I attached to the motor shield's screw terminals. Remember, do not plug your track power into the Arduino Mega controller by mistake, or you may fry the board. Now, we can click on the power slider button on the EX-WebThrottle. We will see a confirmation in the yellow console window, and on the command station itself, we should see the 4 red lights on the motor shield next to the screw terminals light up, letting us know that power is flowing for both the main and the programming tracks. Click the power button on and off a few times to see the 4 red LED indicator lights go on and off in unison. Step 7. Let's run some trains. And now, at last, we are ready to run some trains. First, let's get a short section of track and hook it up with a pair of feeder wires with a female barrel connector on the end, like we made in the last video. We'll plug this into the lead from the command station for the programming track that we also made in the last video. Next, we'll get one of our DCC locomotives and place it on the track. Let's try this Santa Fe Jeep Bluebonnet. Let's make sure the power is on. Once we have our locomotive on the track, we can confirm its DCC address. There is no button on the EX-WebThrottle for this, but we can do it manually by typing an uppercase, capital letter, R in the command line of the debug console and then reading the result that comes back from the locomotive. In this case, the locomotive has confirmed that its DCC address is set to 3611, which is the road number on the locomotive. Having confirmed that, let's unplug our test track from the lead for the programming track and plug it into the lead for the main track. Now, in the locomotive ID window, we'll type in the locomotive address that we just confirmed, 3611, and hit return, or click on the little button with the arrow, and we will have configured our throttle for the locomotive. Let's make sure the power is on and try and honk the horn. Now let's turn on the lights and fire up the prime mover. Notch up the throttle, release the brakes, and we're ready to roll.
Dispatcher to the work extra. Let's copy a new warrant. Over.
What's next? Installing a Wi-Fi shield and JMRI. The EX-WebThrottle app is a convenient and easy way to get started running our trains from our computer. We can also save a copy of the app on our computer if we like, so we can access it without going online. We can also change the throttle settings, save the names and addresses of our locomotives, and save function maps with names for the throttle buttons. But what if we want a throttle with more features and options? And how can we use wireless throttles like our phone or tablet? One option is to install an Arduino Wi-Fi shield on the command station. Another option is to install JMRI and set up JMRI throttles on our computer. Each of these two options has its advantages, and we are going to do them both. We'll start first by adding a Wi-Fi shield to the command station and installing the WiThrottle app on our phone. Later, we'll install and configure JMRI and set up some JMRI throttles. But that's a discussion for another day. Go ahead and spend some time playing with your trains. We'll take up DCC-EX again in the next video and find out how to install and configure a Wi-Fi shield on the Arduino. Until then, thanks for watching. Scratchy, did you get all of the bugs out of our code? All right then, let's run some trains. All aboard!